Hi, I'm Brandy,
And I'm Jen.
and this is
Keeping it simple.
Hi, welcome to the fifth episode of Keeping It Simple. In today's episode, we're talking about the turtle or the tortoise. All right, Jen. So, what are some keywords that you think of when you think of a turtle or a tortoise? Either one.
Longevity, patience, wisdom, protection, independence. Those are probably some of the top ones for me. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I same thing. I also think about uh, medicine. That's another one that comes up for me because the turtle medicine is actually turtles are used for medicinal properties in different places of the world. So I
Right?
think about that, and then I think about it's very interesting because it's that masculine and feminine energy, and then protection of the shell. So there's a lot of different key words, and when you start getting into the history of turtles and tortoise, I like the word tortoise. I don't know
Or
why,
I.
but the tortoise, tortoises, tortoise. It's interesting to me how many creation myths throughout the world involve a turtle or a tortoise.
Yes, yeah. It's wild how many different cultures shared this same kind of general idea. It's wild, especially when you think about this is goes back to ancient times when travel wasn't as prevalent. So like that's where it gets crazy, right? It's wild that they had the same concepts and ideas without ever really intermixing those cultures for quite a while.
Supposedly,
That's right.
supposedly,
Supposedly.
supposedly.
Yeah, the world turtle, it's often called either the world turtle or the cosmic turtle, sometimes also the world bearing turtle. It's a myth that goes through, I mean, literally, I'll let you name all the different ones because there's so many, and I know you have a good pulse on all the ones that touch on this. But the general concept is almost always the same. It's a giant turtle or tortoise that is essentially supporting the weight of the earth of the world. And sometimes that comes with other creatures, like sometimes there's some elephants mixed in or some other things, but depending on the culture. But that general idea is the same, and it's so it's a creation myth of the world itself. And can
Which
you
is
list
interesting.
all the cultures? Because I know there's like so many of
Yeah,
them.
there's tons. What I think is interesting is if you're familiar with Atlas and mythology, who
Mhm.
carries the weight of the world on their shoulders, that's very much that turtle symbolism. So just it's literally throughout the world. We've got it in North America, South America, Central America, all over Europe. But just to name a few that I pulled, you have Chinese, Japanese, multiple places in Central Africa, West Africa, Central America, North America. And of course, more specifically, you've got the Mayans, the Indians, the Brahmins, which are associated with Hinduism and the Vedas. And Tibet, they're really well known. Bangladesh, Egypt, the Iroquois, and then just in North America, the Sioux, the Huron, the Mongols, the Turks, the Alturks of Central Asia, the Dogon. Like there's so many different places that you just start pulling these creation myths or where the turtle is in some way associated, not turtle, tortoise, it could be a tortoise,
The
are
tortoise.
associated are associated with the creation of the world and the maintaining of it.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I mean, that's you just listed most of the world basically. Like you just like
We're all over the place.
the world
The
thought this.
world. Yeah, I mean it is. It's pretty interesting. One of the ones that I found in China, and maybe you saw this too, it's called Nukao, and it's what stabilizes the cosmos. Did you see this one?
I saw a
Nukao?
little bit, but I'd like, yeah, go ahead and
Okay.
touch on it,
So
please.
in China, it is believed that the new cow cut off its four legs to establish the four poles of creation. And subsequently, this is what I found interesting because I found an image and then I went digging backwards, is that every pillar in an imperial tomb in China has its base carved in the shape of a tortoise.
Oh, no, that I didn't know. That's interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
So I was like, where did that come from? So like I backtracked.
yeah.
that to me is absolutely fascinating, because it's not just this turtle that comes out of this, primordial water, and upholds the earth, or the earth grows on its back as the first island, whatever. They, to them, it's not just some myth. It's so much so that it is the four poles of creation, and subsequently every imperial tomb has a tortoise carved in the
Yeah,
bottom.
I mean,
You know
that
how much
makes it
time that it takes a
right.
lot of time and energy.
And that
Yeah,
makes it I mean, one of the most important animal figures
they're
in that
holding the
culture
tomb.
then.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. I also found in China that in general the tortoise is considered to be one of the four um entities that possess spirit. So there are four creatures that they consider to possess spirit, and the tortoise is one of them. The tortoise specifically represents the direction north, and is one of, apparently it's one of, it also represents for them longevity, endurance, strength. I think that all kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying. There's an ancient book of ceremonies in Chinese culture that this kind of all is laid out in. I thought it was also interesting, tortoise shells carry some of the oldest examples of Chinese writing. I thought that was really fascinating too.
They also carry some of the oldest forms of divination.
Yes, we'll get into
So
that
this
one
is,
more, right?
yeah, so this is
Yeah.
one that I found. I've actually seen this before, and I've seen it. It's interesting because if you look at native peoples, wherever you are, indigenous, they use turtle shells for a lot of different things. In China, one of those things is divination. They write as well. But what they will do is they'll take the flat surface of a turtle shell,
Uh-huh.
and they'll use hot rods to put on it. And the way that it cracks or splinters, they divine with that.
Oh,
It's kind of like
wow.
throwing ruins or sticks or
Yeah.
bones, but it's the way in which the turtle shells crack is how the diviner reads the message.
Man, I would love to get a tortoise shell reading. That would be
I
awesome.
mean, and that it's pretty, yeah,
That's
it's
unique.
pretty cool to me. If you look, and you can actually find, course, because we have different diviners of different practices and different religious belief systems and backgrounds, cultural, etc. You can find people that do turtle shell readings, even
That's
in the
really cool.
States. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's prominent. I shouldn't say it's prominent. It is, I don't want to say prominent's probably not the right. You can find it in Chinatowns in different places.
Right. It's
So,
been brought here.
yeah,
Right.
it's something that has been brought here, and you can, most of them, from my understanding, it's only for people within their religious and cultural belief system, but
Right.
there are those that do offer it to people outside of their circle.
That's really cool.
See?
I thought this was interesting because the tortoise is it's such a strong symbol in the ancient Chinese culture, like with all these things we're talking about. But apparently, and I don't know if this is still true in modern times, but in China, it's considered offensive to call someone a tortoise. And they said it's because there's a story around tortoises not being able to recall their own date of birth. And so it's almost like
Interesting.
calling somebody addle-brained possibly, or kind of,
Yeah.
kind of like an idiot because they can't even remember their own birth date. I thought that was really interesting that that can be an offensive thing to call somebody, even with all this beautiful
Yeah.
significance
I
of the
mean, that,
tortoise.
to me, that is kind of surprising because, you think of the turtle is supposed to be the wise one. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting to me that it would be, I mean, it's kind of like, that offshoot of, I mean, just when you think of today's type of, just look at the, like, the turtle and the hare, or the tortoise and the hare, like taking it slow and steady. That's more intelligent than being, antsy and rushing. But then also you look at what I know I had mentioned to you briefly before we came on, that I wanted to make sure is, when you think of the kids movie, the Kung Fu Panda, that's one that just stuck out to me recently, because
Right.
you have the tortoise is the wise one. So that's interesting that that would be an offensive thing, because they are associated so much with wisdom, like you said, longevity, but with longevity comes wisdom.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
even the thing they're saying that I found that they're claiming to be the offensive part, because there's a story around tortoises not being able to recall their own birth date. That's, I guess, where it plays in, like, oh, are you stupid or something? But it's
Yeah.
even that still points to their longevity, and as far as
Hmm.
they're so old they can't even remember their own birth date. So in some ways that even
Well,
points
and
to
that's true.
their
Yeah.
longevity and
I
wisdom.
mean, my mom has, she has three tortoise. She did have, well, no, she has two now. She has three. Um, and those things are actually passed on in families. Like that's something that gets inherited because they live for that long that if you have a tortoise, you might want to will it to somebody in the event of your untimely demise because they do live that long. And I've told my mom that I'm like, these things are going to outlive you. So, and they're young. They're only a few years old, and I'm like, oh yeah,
So you might
you
be
got a
getting some
long way to
tortoises
go.
eventually.
Yeah, I might be getting some
I
tortoises.
would love to have a tortoise. Oh, I actually found the oldest known living one was 188 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, I like
Yeah.
my 88s right now.
So it's interesting because, well, it's not interesting, but when you think of the movie, my kids really like to watch Finding Nemo, and
Huh?
he's asking like, how long do sea turtles live? And he's like, they could be about 100, and then he goes out on the venture, and he tells them, oh no, I'm 150. People don't realize how long, in the right conditions, with adequate food, shelter, all of those things, they really are an animal of endurance, whether they're on land, they are in the mountains, which is another interesting thing about them. Turtles are in caves, they're in mountains, they're in marshes, they're in jungles, they're in the ocean. They literally, I mean, what, maybe Antarctica? Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe that's the only place that they're not.
Yeah.
For all I know, there's like a turtle there too. So it's very interesting to me that they also they're one of the species that spans the entire globe and can live in, so you have that adaptability that comes in because they
Yeah.
can live in all these different conditions, which I'm sure also played a part into why ancient cultures believed that they upheld the cosmos, that they came from the primordial waters. Does that make sense?
It
Because you
does.
have
It does.
this single animal. I mean, you can say like, oh, well, cats are all over the world. They are, and you might have a difference between like a tiger and a lion versus a domestic cat. But if you think of turtles, for the most part, they look the same no matter where they are. Does that make sense? They have the
It
shell,
does.
they
It
have the
does.
body where, and you can have some larger than others. However, they're very cohesive in appearance as opposed to maybe another animal that's all over the world might have very dramatic differences.
Right. Right. No,
So
that
that was
absolutely points to
interesting.
their adaptability and their endurance. I think that's really cool.
So I had found something that I thought was really cool. In the Mayan belief, their moon god, because I'm sure you found at least the turtles associated with the moon, or you knew
Yes.
that. Yeah, because
Hmm.
that's a common known thing that it's associated with the moon, predominantly nocturnal creature, and then it's got a dome on its back, so moon is what comes up. But their moon god, his breastplate was made out of a tortoise shell.
And this is Mayan, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's interesting because I
Yeah.
mean, you do have those associations that go back, but when you think of the moon god, it's not just, it's the integration of the symbolism. Does that make sense? Like they
It
didn't just give
does.
him, to me, it reminds me a lot of like the Egyptian pantheon where they stick the animal's head on the human body,
Right.
but they stuck the tortoise shell as the breastplate to me. And then I was thinking, you know what? That gives very like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes, which I'm a huge Teenage Mutant
I
Ninja
was gonna
Turtle
say
vibe
we
person.
have to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. But it gives me, okay, so here gives you an idea. I was doing a tarot reading and I've never been given the sign of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like the way that my guides work will give me like just random things that I associate with and I can tell my client, right? And I said something and I'm like, I couldn't remember the rat's name because I haven't seen Teenage
Yeah.
Mutant Ninja Turtles in like forever. And I didn't watch the remake because that's just an abomination in my opinion. You can't redo the Ninja Turtles. But
Right.
I love classical art, Renaissance era, Baroque, all of that so much. And Teenage Mutant, like I had like the action figures, the bedding and all that.
Did you?
Yes, I love them so much that the twins' middle names were supposed to be Leonardo and Michelangelo,
Oh, that's awesome.
and I was told no. So I fought for it. I mean, two of my favorite artists, and then it was Teenage Mutant. Like I went the whole like, but it's like after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was told no. So I mean, it's just interesting to me when it comes to when I like I said, I saw the Mayan thing and I thought immediately very much, and if you remember in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's under the moon and the nocturnal aspect that they do all their work.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay,
So
now
they
see,
do.
now we're getting deep even with the Teenage Mutant
Do you know
Ninja
what I'm
Turtles.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I found fascinating. I was
love
like,
that.
there, y'all have to apologize. Francis is interjecting himself. My cat Francis has decided to join the recording.
Francis.
Yeah.
Kitty. Oh, he wants to talk.
Yes. So I know you have a son. Was he big into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
He actually wasn't. I don't know how we missed that. I think because really, if you think about it, it was our time. Well, I say our,
Yeah, it was
I'm
our
older than you.
generation.
I got to remember this. I'm actually quite a bit older than you, but it was still part of my generation somewhat, as far as when it was really its first surgence of popularity. And I know there's been a resurgence, but we just never, it was never when we pulled up. I don't know why.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
I said, this new stuff is an abomination. Thou shalt not consume the abomination. So when you think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you said we definitely had to talk about it. Is there anything that you can pull out of that?
Well, I go back to in the China culture that, is one of those four entities that they consider the turtle or tortoise a symbol of strength. And I mean, they are definitely symbols of strength and adaptability. I mean, they're mutations and they had to
Yeah.
adapt, number one, so they're adaptable. And then obviously they have all these badass skills. And, as a martial arts instructor, I love me some different
That's why I was curious.
weapons. They got the different weapons they wield. I love all that stuff,
That's
obviously.
what I was wondering if you were going to hit on it and be like, so what do you think about the martial arts side of it? Now, I am curious, what are the other three animals that they believe can be ensouled outside of the turtle?
That's a good question. I don't have that in my notes, so I'll have to look that up. And
We're
we'll
gonna
maybe
have
we'll have
to,
to drop it on the socials or something because that's a really good
yeah,
question.
because I'm curious if that relates to, it goes back, well, it goes back to what we were talking about with when I brought up just the Kung Fu Panda, which is not Chinese, as Japanese, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, Kung Fu Panda was Japanese.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's been so long since I've seen it. I mean, like since it came out to everything, the twins won't watch it. But I'm curious if the other animals that were involved in that movie are part of those animals since the tortoise was the one heading it. Because that might give you some symbolic meaning right there alone. You may not necessarily see the tortoise show up, but it may be one of the companion animals, but with the tortoise message.
Yeah, now I'm really gonna have to look that up because now you got me intrigued, especially if there's any tie to Kung Fu Panda. We will
That's what I'm saying.
we'll follow up on the socials on that one because that's really actually now I want to know.
Yeah, that one's interesting. So here's the flip side of that, though, because we're talking about, warriors and all of that, right? We're talking about the ability to be adaptable. Aztecs saw them as cowards.
What? Girl,
The
why?
recruit. So it was a sexual energy, first of all.
Okay.
And then on top of that, apparently, as I was reading it, and I couldn't go too deep down the rabbit hole because, I spent all day there.
Oh yeah.
But apparently, because of the way that they retract into their shell when they're spooked,
Right.
they're a symbol of coward, to be cowardice.
See, that's really interesting. That's interesting that that's how they interpret that. I think it's a pretty amazing shield that they have. That's a pretty almost like a superpower that they have this built-in shield that they can then retreat to fully protect
Yeah.
their body and
So the
their
way,
squishy parts.
if I read it correctly, and maybe I didn't read it correctly, but what I was understanding is because of the way that it's almost like a penile erection when they stick their head out of their shell. It's got that very
Oh,
sexual energy, but
yeah.
it's almost like when push comes to shove, they retract into their shell.
I'm sorry,
So
but now
it's that.
I'm gonna be picturing. I'm just
So
picturing
I mean,
the little head poking out. Oh my goodness.
I mean, well, now you know why. I mean,
Yeah, that
I
makes
know
sense.
there's some other creation stories we wanted to talk to, but sexual energy is very prominent with the turtle in different areas of the world for the same exact reason.
Right.
So, and that's why
Have you ever seen
now
that
that,
movie? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Forgive me. Have you ever seen that movie? Oh gosh, something about cats. The Truth About Cats and Dogs.
no,
Okay. We don't need to go down too big of a explanation, but there's a scene where a woman who's pretending to be a veterinarian or a pet specialist, but
Mhm.
because her and this other woman are swapping roles, and she gets in a situation where she has to help this pet turtle, but she's not actually an animal specialist.
Bet.
And so she has to wrap her finger in plastic wrap and then like poke its butt to get it to stick its little head out so they can give it medicine. I don't know. Never mind. It has nothing to do with it. I'm
Yeah,
just
let's
picturing that
not
she
go
has to.
down that rabbit hole, Jen.
Yeah,
That's a rabbit
sorry.
hole we're going to avoid.
That's a turtle hole we'll avoid.
Redirect, redirect.
Turtle, not that turtle hole.
Okay, so okay, you know what though? Okay, let's finish the creation, talking about the creation
Yes.
side of this, because I
Yeah.
do want to talk about there is the dark side of turtles, which does have to deal with the way that they dig holes in the earth.
Okay.
So the other thing that I was looking at, this one, if anybody's familiar with Vishnu, the Vedas, anything like that, that has to deal with well, they call them avatars, but it's incarnations of Vishnu. The second out of 10, the second one, he incarnates as a turtle.
Okay.
And so, well, it's a tortoise, but I'm going to read this to you so that I don't screw up what I'm trying to say because,
Sure.
yeah, it will happen. But essentially, this tortoise is the support of the throne of the Godhead, and he acted as the fountain of Mount Mandara and held it steady when the divas, which are, and the asura, which are the demons, right? Like the divas are like what we would consider genies or, foul players, began to churn the sea of milk, which is essentially to ascertain the elixir of immortality. So, of course, you don't want demons and divas to have the elixir of immortality. And so he, being the tortoise, basically held everything steady to avoid it being thrown off course,
Oh, okay.
which I found was
Interesting.
interesting. The way, because he was that foundation of Mount Mandara, it's really like one of those, essentially what I don't want to say like stopping an earthquake, right? But it's trying to avoid as much destruction as possible. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
So I wish I knew. I say that I'm going every time I do this, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna learn the Vedas. I'm gonna read them. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And I never get around to it. But the Brahmins also associate, which are part of the Hindu Vedas, or the text associated, they believe that the tortoise is creation itself. So it's very interesting when you talk about, again, that you've got water, the primordial water in the Chinese. You've got the moon association with water also in the Mayans.
Right.
And then you have in India the same thing. And I'll be honest, I found Tibet, same exact thing. In Bangladesh, it is the moon is the husband. I'm sorry, the turtle is the husband of the moon and is tasked with rescuing the earth from the bottom of the sea. So again, you have that water association. The Iroquois, same thing. The first island from which earth grew was on a turtle's back, obviously came from the water. Algonquins, same thing. So you do have this long across the globe. The turtle comes from the water. It establishes the four pillars. It establishes the mountain. It establishes the island that the earth and man basically evolved from. How do you do that across a globe, across millennia of people who supposedly don't have written language, who have limited written anything? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do
Yeah.
you
Are you about to go
send things?
ancient aliens on me?
Oh man, don't make me go ancient aliens. Like I try not to go down that route, but I mean seriously, like it's very
It
interesting
is.
when
It's
you have so many
mind-boggling.
people. And what's crazy is that same water story they see in North American natives. That's where we're talking about the Sioux and the Huron. Then you see it in Mongol, the Turks, and the Altics of Central Asia. All of these have the same moon, water, primordial water establishment of the cosmos and
Right.
the beginning of the evolution of man.
Yeah, that blows my
I
mind.
thought we came from monkeys, Jen. Apparently, we come from tortoise.
Tortai. That is a
Tortoise.
nice
I'm
little word.
telling you, I like that word, tortoise.
Tortai. Yeah.
So here's one that's interesting, though. Did you find any other water ones? The primordial water, the establishment of?
I don't think I found any more water ones that other than what you've mentioned.
Okay. So this is really fascinating to me. You know, I love Egypt.
Oh,
Egypt is
yes.
my jam. Okay. Oh, Africa in general. And there's two that I'm super freaking excited about. One is the Dogon, who, if you are an ancient alien watchers, you're going to know that Dogons are amazing and so in tune with things. Um, but out of all of those water moon associations, the Egyptians associate it with drought, death, and the enemy of the sun.
What?
Isn't that interesting? So it is that
What?
lunar
Yeah,
opposition to, but if you think about turtles, they can be in water. We've already talked about that. But to see a
right.
tortoise to them was like drought, famine, destitution, no
Yeah.
food, you're an enemy of the sun.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating to
That
me?
is
To me,
really
it was like
fascinating.
to for them of all people to be the opposite.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
now the Dogon, who are in West Africa. So Egypt is in North Africa, right? Set by the Maghreb region. So West Africa is the Dogon tribe. Now here's what I love. Remember we talked about inheriting turtles?
Yes.
Like people, well, tortoise, because
Tortoise.
they live tortoise, because they live for so long. In
Right.
West Africa, the Dogon tribe tortoise are so significant to them and their belief system that all families own a tortoise, which is given the first mouthful of food and water each day before
Oh,
anybody else in the
wow.
family is allowed to eat.
Wow. That is definitely
Everything, and
honorary.
it's passed down.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, that's how significant. Even more so is the Japanese pay the same respect. Their fortai eat before they do. And this is why we were talking about the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing.
Uh-huh.
Like it's kind of significant when you start thinking about the symbolism of it on where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came from.
Right.
The symbolism of, I'm telling you, I'm about to bust out some Ninja Turtle movies and rewatch some stuff from the 80s.
Right.
I might rename my children in the process. I need to see how much that costs. Be like, nope, your name was changed. I'm sorry.
Love it.
The only, I mean, that's really what I got out of just and the primordial side of stuff. But there's something that's deeper with turtles. Do you know anything about how they work in alchemy?
I don't.
Oh,
You girl, you're gonna tell me. I want to know
this
though.
is my jam. Okay. So if you actually look through a bunch of manuscripts that often are not in English, obviously, when you start getting into wood carvings, when you start getting into press prints and stuff like that, the turtle shows up numerous times. Usually it's just the shell. Sometimes it's the whole thing, but it's oftentimes it's just the shell. And so this sent me on a like, why? I mean, you expect the rabbit, you expect certain things. Do you know what I'm saying? The falcon,
Yeah.
the hawk, like there's certain things, and I'm like, okay, the turtle. And the only thing I'm thinking is, okay, it has to do with primordial waters, it has to do with the creation of man, evolution of man, or whatever. Here's the deal. The shell, well, turtle in general, but the shell deals with the same thing that we were just talking about when we did the episode on grapes. It's that primal material. It's
Yes.
that base material. It's the
Right.
lead, right? And so when you have this primal matter, it's essentially how do you change it? And if you look at Renaissance era art, look at how many times the turtle is depicted or the turtle shell. Oftentimes it's in the background of something. It's not something that's like super present. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's not a
Yeah.
picture of a turtle shell. It's something that you see off and it's just interesting. So one of the ones that I found that was really cool and it's the hypernotomia and Folafali, I believe is how you say it.
That's a
Anyways,
mouthful.
yes, and it's colonus, and I mean, it's one of the same. But when you start looking at hermetic allegories, this is where it gets interesting because there's this woodcut And one of the things that is happening is it's showing the contrasting between a turtle shell and a set of wings. And so you're looking at it's a hermetic allegory for the base material and the
Right.
alchemical process, alchemy being associated with mercury, the wings. So to go through that process. So essentially, you can literally look at the turtle shells, not just that first inkling, that dawn of light, that primordial water, that the beginning of all. It can also be, okay, now what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
How do you transform that into something bigger? Um, and it was looking at, because I mean, it is the materia prima of the work. But what I found interesting is not only do the Renaissance era artists depict the same, the Chinese alchemists started using this shell as they believed that it was the starting point of development too for the individual soul, not just mankind.
Wow.
So it can be seen there in their artwork as well. That is freaking cool. It's literally seen as the beginning of the spiritualization of matter. And
Yeah.
whether or not you go through the alchemical process to evolve from a hard shell to light and feathery wings is up to you.
Oh, wow, that's deep.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I mean, I have seen it, but it's so many things that we see, but you don't give too much thought to, like Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like you wouldn't
Right.
think, what is the symbolism? You just think, oh, okay, it's some mutant ninja turtles that are
Yeah.
now fighting crime. Do you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
when you start putting it in context of like basically saving um, mankind or other people or the self, and if you think about the battles that they face with themselves through, I'm talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, because yes,
Yes.
that's where we're
Yes.
at. When you think about the things that they go through and the
Yeah.
struggles that they personally deal with, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not just about doing the good on the outside, it's the struggles that they personally have being underground. Does that make sense? And I can't
Right.
remember which turtle it was. So I haven't seen these since they came out. But one of the turtles, he's struggling so bad with wanting to be out in the open. And I just remember he was the one that came across the guy with the hockey puck. God, it's been so long since I've seen
No,
this.
it's been so long.
But they were the guy with the hockey puck or hockey stick was fighting off the robbers or whatever, and the turtle showed up. And the only reason he was out was because, again, he was struggling with having to basically be underground, be nighttime, nocturnal, to stay in the low light, to do the good without being recognized or seen. And that's a lot of what the alchemical process is to do the work and be okay with not receiving recognition, acceptance, not being in the limelight. It's to
Yeah.
be in the darkness, to be the nocturnal, to do the work, to do the good without saying, hey, look at me, like
Right.
I'm
Wow.
improved.
Well, also, it just occurs to me the very name, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and really all that those things you're describing in alchemy is really transmutation.
Mhm.
It's also transmutation of the soul, not just transformation, it's transmutation
That is correct.
of the
It
matter.
is.
So
Isn't it cool?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Yeah, we
they're
gotta have
deep.
a I want a picture on the socials, you
Oh,
hear
we're
me? But
definitely
it
getting
can't
some
but
Teenage
it
Mutant Ninja
cannot it
Turtles.
cannot be the new one. Those things looked
Do
freaky. When
you
I saw
have any
that,
cute pictures of you and your little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle bed sheet?
my mom probably does.
I mean, would you
My
I think
mom.
that would be the cutest to share.
I had trolls too. I can't remember if I had the turtles or my cousins had the turtles, but I remember the turtle bedding.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was mine, but I don't we were together like every day. And does that make sense? Like I
Your
was over
cousins,
there.
yeah, like brothers
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sisters.
So
Yep. Uh-huh.
yeah, so I don't remember if it was theirs or mine, but I remember
Right.
I had Star Wars bedding too. I think I had Star Wars, or maybe that was Josh. I don't know, but I remember the bedding, and
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that does bring us though beautifully into the dark side of the turtle,
Okay.
because we're talking about the dark and what you have to keep. And so the word turtle and tortoise believed to derive from the Latin word tortoise, which from Greek mythology
Yes.
is the underworld.
Yes.
So it deals with the word literally derives from tortoise. How do you say it? I can't say it. Taurus? No, Taurus. the
Wait, are we talking
underworld.
about Tartus? Isn't it
Yes,
Tartus?
I can't say that.
Yeah.
I can't say that. Well, I mean, I can't. Tortoise. So it literally derives from the underworld. So when you talk about
Right.
turtles, you're also talking about the subconscious. You're talking about the depths of the internal. Again, that base material. It's the raw material. It's what has not been perfected. It's just the beginning. It is the mound of clay that has yet to be molded.
Yeah. And the wisdom that comes from being able to experience the underworld.
Yes, I like that. The one of the things I thought was cool when you started looking at the dark side of the turtle and like the way that it shows up is that while the shell is associated with heaven, most the dome of the shell, they associate the body or the bottom flat side of the shell with hell or the underworld.
Oh,
So
interesting.
to see a turtle upside down can be to be living in hell because
Ooh,
hell is upside down. Does that
yeah.
make sense? Or right side up, however you want to say it. And then again, very much like the Chinese who believe that the legs are the four pillars of the cosmos or creation, the legs of the tortoise are often seen as the four pillars of creation. So when you
Right.
look at them, and it's literally, and it's interesting, that's why these temples are built with four pillars. It could be built with
Yeah.
more. I mean, you technically could build with less. I wouldn't recommend that. But that's why it's so significant to have the four pillars. It also plays a role in why the dimensions are what they are.
Damn.
That's fascinating.
Like, but I feel like my head is just buzzing. This, I
Isn't that
love this.
cool?
Yes.
So that's it's again that it is the depths, the underworld. What's really interesting is in certain places they talk about, depending on the way that the turtle comes up for you or tortoise, is that it can be about our darker nature. It can be literally imprisoned or to be introverted and unable to step out, but it can also be meditative, self-imposed imprisonment where you shut yourself off from the
Yes.
rest of the world,
And I'm also
which,
picturing on a very fundamental level, if a turtle gets stuck on his back, they can't right themselves without help almost. And
yeah.
so you're talking about that bottom flat part being hell, or, and being that there's that struggle, but there's also that stuckness when you're stuck
Mhm.
in whatever your routines are, or with your demons, or whatever the things are you're fighting, and you get stuck in those patterns and stuck in the struggle.
Yeah, and it's interesting because some of the best ways to get out of that stuck energy is to withdraw and meditate. It is not to continue to struggle to flip yourself up. It's to withdraw, which is
Right.
very interesting. Um, when you have, so we're talking a lot about land turtles, but if you also think about this, this also applies to turtles that are in water,
Sea
especially
turtles. Yeah.
sea turtles, right?
Mhm.
They're extremely powerful swimmers. They can go down, any turtle that can go into water can go to incredibly deep, dark depths. And so you
Yeah.
again, you think of that subconscious, right? They can burrow underground. People don't realize that. They lay their eggs in the ground, not in the water. So it's again hitting that hell, that deep, that depth, that struggle. Sometimes it's self-imposed, sometimes it's necessary to withdraw and go deep down within. I
Yes.
like that because it's very contradictory, you would normally think, to coming from the primordial water. Everything springs from me. It's right the opposite. Does that make sense? Like it seems very, to me, contradictory, but
It
it's
does,
not.
it
If you think of
does,
the
but
attributes.
I literally think of the depths of the ocean, and honestly, that's a big old fear of mine. I think like not like the ocean itself, but those depths, the really deep, dark depths
You mean the giant
where
fish,
there's
Jen?
giant fish that shouldn't be that giant, and the where no light can get to get to the
Mhm,
deepest, darkest depths, and you can't literally there's zero light unless you're one of
mhm.
those little happy fish with a lantern.
So I like that you said that though, because in Hinduism, the turtle's withdrawal into its shell is a symbol of the highest spiritual significance. It is involution. It is the recognition of basic spiritual attitude. It is to say, I'm going to put myself in a timeout.
Well, it's just like the
That makes
hermit in
sense.
tarot. The hermit in
Yeah.
tarot is one of the wisest, that's on that spiritual journey that is segregating and basically isolating itself, and
So what I hear from you is that next time you do a deck, the hermit's going to have a turtle shell. You know
oh,
what?
that'd be so cute.
didn't we talk about the Wheel of Fortune? There was something gonna be on your next Wheel of Fortune one. So
Yeah,
that
what
would
was
be
that?
cool. I don't know, but because we've talked about the fortune telling with the turtle shell, if you do
Yeah.
it again, be cool to do a turtle shell Wheel of Fortune.
We just might have to do a Keeping It Simple tarot at some point that actually has all of these little,
Oh,
like, these little nuggets
I'm down
of
for that.
ideas.
Yeah, because
That's what
it's
we need to do.
fascinating when you look at, again, so many people across the globe have this same turtle, tortoise, primordial water, where creation comes from, but then the need to withdraw the darker aspects. It's literally like life. It is creation in its different forms. Sometimes you have to create by taking a step back. Sometimes you have to
Right.
create by going through hell itself. But I find it very okay. Say the underworld for me again. Tartus.
TARDIS. Yeah,
Oh,
TARDIS.
TARDIS. I don't know why I can't say that. I think it's because I want to say Taurus, and my
Oh,
brain is like
yes. Yeah.
Taurus, not tortoise.
Right.
But I do know that that is, if I remember correctly, I have not seen. I haven't seen that movie in probably whatchamacallit? Oh
What
Lord, it
movie?
done
What
left my
movie?
brain. I'm trying to think of the name of it because I should know
Give
this.
me a clue.
Not not Hercules. It's not the Hercules movie. It's
Troy? No, not Troy.
no, not Troy.
Clash of the
The one from
Titans?
Clash of the Titans from like the, I don't know, like 70s or
The
80s.
really the really awesome special effects one from the 80s.
Yes, with the owl. But doesn't he
Yes.
go to Tartus? Doesn't he go down there, or is that in the newer one?
See, because again, I haven't watched Clash of the Titans from the 80s since the 80s probably, so I don't
Yeah, I
remember.
haven't seen it in forever. I've seen the
Yeah.
new one, but I remember as a kid being like terrified of that damn owl. Like I thought that
Right.
owl was. I was just
It's
remember thinking, oh,
creepy.
that thing's it's creepy. Yeah. So if somebody, well, and really what we did not premise with is that the reason we chose to do the turtle this episode is because I've had multiple turtles showing up around me.
Literally.
Yes, I've come across two, stopped traffic, got one out of the road. Then the other day, somebody else stopped traffic and I was the oncoming, so I held up the line from behind me so that she could get out of the road. But I've had numerous clients that have had turtles showing up. I mean, clients who are not associated. I am not in a coastal region. I'm not anywhere that you would think that the turtle symbol is, readily
Yeah.
available as a bumper
Prevalent.
stickers and stuff. But I have so many people that have been showing up with turtles. I mean, turtle jewelry. Somebody gave me a business card that has a turtle on it. I mean, and she was like, this is like my symbol. And I'm like, wow, okay. So if somebody were to come across a turtle in the middle of the street, walking across the street, besides stopping and helping the little guy across the road, what would you, first of all, would you consider that a sign or a
Oh, hell
potential
yeah.
sign?
Well, you
Okay.
know I would.
Okay, so what would be your interpretation if it's walking across the road and you have to stop or, slow down?
Well, literally, I mean, if we go back to really fundamental basics, I mean, literally, it could be a sign that you need to slow, just like the tortoise and the hare. Sometimes you need to go a little slower to have success. Sometimes you need to acknowledge that slow progress is still progress. So, especially if that turtle is moving and alive and moving its little slow, steady path, that's a pretty positive sign in my mind. It also brings up all that cosmic wisdom, all of that longevity. It's kind of like you're in for this is the long run. This isn't a sprint. It's a marathon, just like they say. Like you need to be patient because success is coming. Your hard effort will pay off. All that kind of stuff comes with the turtle.
I think it would also, I mean, that comes to mind for me, but I also think about like you said, hard effort. It to me also brings up like, be mindful. Do you need to protect yourself right now? Do you need to put on a
Yeah, that's right.
hard outer shell
Shield.
and erect a boundary with between
Correct.
you? I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Oh, you talked
You're
about the little
such a kid.
hair
Oh,
poking out.
jeez. Folks, this is what
Forgive
I
me. Forgive
this
me.
is she's my better half. This is why we compliment each other. But I mean, literally, like putting up a boundary
Yes.
between you and other people or you and something else. And it can be even if somebody's pushing you, right? Like if they're
Yeah.
giving you hare energy or rabbit energy of like, go, 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 go,
Let's go.
go.
Let's go pick up the pace. Yeah.
Yeah, it could literally be you being Jen, being like, "We're gonna be fine. We're gonna take it slow." Because sometimes I'm like, "We need to do this."
Yes, you do.
And she's like, "I know, I do that." And she's like, "We're fine. Everything's good." So we can literally be putting on that hard outer shell to
Right.
erect the boundary between you and them to withdraw, to go into that
Yeah.
permit mode of like, I need to take a step back. I personally don't, now again, I'm not very intimate with the turtles, so that's not a symbol that I really work with a whole lot. However, I don't associate it with anything sexual connotation because it is associated with the male and female reproductive organs. That's
Right.
something that's seen in several areas. So if you are from a culture where they see turtles as a sign literally of the male and female reproductive organs, maybe you're being asked to call attention to something in your life that has to deal of a sexual nature. So if you have that cultural context or to you that resonates and you're like, yeah, I never thought about that before, but you see a turtle and the first thing you think is something that has to do with that, that's what I would follow. There's a lot of things that
Definitely.
deal with, think about the turtle. People think they're slow. They are slow, but let me tell you something. Try picking up a turtle in the middle of the road and it hauls butt. And in the same hand that you're trying to pick it up, you also don't want to get like a finger snapped off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they have an incredible freaking bite.
Well,
So
in addition to as you were talking about the like that hermit energy of going within and withdrawing and taking time out to like assess and to, gain wisdom, the turtles also bring a lot of independent energy because
oh yeah.
scientifically, there's no species of turtle that nurture their children. And every single species of turtle basically lays their eggs and walks away. So you are
Yep.
on your own. And also, I thought this one was kind of cool. Back to a little bit of the sexuality and reproduction.
Hold on,
Even
let
oh
me hit you
yes,
on the egg thing. So
yeah,
one thing that's also interesting about turtles, because I pay this ridiculous amount of money for Hulu just so I can watch History Channel. I do watch Discovery Channel too, like nature stuff. Anyways,
sure,
um, turtles that lay their eggs on the beach, sea turtles, they
yes,
do that intentionally. They lay in the same area because it gives their offspring the greatest chance of survival. When they all hatch at the same time and they're rushing towards the beach,
yeah,
a turtle, the mother, has a more likely chance of more of her offspring surviving if she's laid her eggs amongst all the other eggs.
right. Oh
So
yeah,
it's kind of like a camouflage of, yeah, we know you're going to take some of them out, the birds, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
if we lay them all in the same area, you have more of a chance of mine surviving essentially if they're all hatching at the same time in the same
right.
area.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. That's really interesting. So even though
So
they're not nurturing, they're still setting them up for the best chance of success.
isn't that cool?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is really cool.
So
And it's
and it
also, have
reminds
you ever
me.
seen, I've never seen it live, but I've seen videos like on the nature channels. That is the most beautiful little, when they're little, when they hatch and they all start running towards the
Yeah, I
ocean.
haven't
Oh my God.
I
And you're
haven't
like,
seen
go,
it
go,
live.
go, go, go. Please don't get
Yeah.
me.
Well, it reminded me when I said that, it reminded me of the movie Moana. Like that is one
Yeah.
of the movies that the twins love. And so at the very
Right.
beginning, for those of you who have seen Moana, because you should. So it has the reason Moana was chosen to bring back the heart of Tafiti to go after Maui and bring back the heart was because it starts when the ocean recognizes that she is helping a baby turtle get safely from its hatch state to the water. So
Right.
again, it's that very it is independence, but it's also strategy is what I
Yeah.
think of. That's what comes to mind for me and
Ooh,
strategy. And
strategy.
I like that. I like
Yeah, I
the
like
word
that too.
strategy.
Which also strategy, a good strategy is usually based in wisdom, you could
Yeah.
say.
Look
So
at you. You're the next philosopher,
yes.
the philosopher of our time.
That's right. Me with my giggling at the word erect. I'm definitely a
Oh,
philosopher.
jeez.
That's okay.
I
Um
hope that we're entertaining to you folks. because we are
Yeah.
entertaining to
We
ourselves. if
definitely, yeah,
nothing
we
else.
definitely make ourselves laugh. Yeah. So, another note on their independence, female turtles can store sperm for up to 4 years in their body and still use it. So it's kind of like, no man, no problem, girl. I just think that's,
I mean,
again,
that
it's
makes
another like
well,
you need to go it alone. If you see a turtle, that might be, especially if you're a woman who's recently been divorced, or or anybody that's having to do something on their own and is struggling, maybe feeling like I'm alone in this venture. That's okay. You've got
include.
strength to do it, and you can do this on your own.
And the first thing that came to mind was how many women are taking their reproductive health and they're wanting to have a child into their own hands. They're no longer waiting to be in a partnership or a marriage. I mean,
Yeah,
artificial insemination, sperm donors has become far more prevalent now than it was.
right. No man, no
So
problem.
even then it could be you're with somebody and they
Yeah,
have reproductive health, concerns, and
right.
so you might need donor sperm. So it might literally be one of those of like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah,
Like it's something to consider, or yes, it's a green light. That's fascinating.
I love it. Fascinating. Now, have you heard the expression turtles all the way down?
No, I
Okay.
haven't, but I'm slightly deterred.
Oh no, it's a good thing. It's not anything gross.
Okay. I'm not perturbed. Never mind.
Oh, good, good. Take it back. Here, there's no perturbed. No, this involves Stephen Hawking. Like Stephen Hawking is
Oh,
the
okay, okay,
genius.
okay.
No, this is good stuff. Now this probably is older than Stephen Hawking, but he does write about it in his 1988 book, A Brief History of Time. But he describes some of this world turtle cosmology kind of myth. And he's describing it as if, when I don't know if this is a real story or if he's just using this as a tale,
Mhm.
but in the book he describes being at a lecture and lecturing about this, how the world was made and how the galaxy was made. And the little old lady in the back of the room said, "What you have told us is rubbish. The world is really a flat plate supported on the back of a giant tortoise." And so he gives a smile and he says, "What is the tortoise standing on, though?" And she said, "You're very clever, young man, very clever, but it's turtles all the way down." And so this is actually a very popular phrase if you Google it. It's
Huh.
almost kind of tied into the idea of infinity. And in a more specific, there's a theory called infinite regress. And the idea is that with this world turtle theory, that like it's a turtle upon a turtle upon a turtle upon a turtle as far as you can go. And
Mhm.
it suggests that basically it's everything is indefinite. So if you go, there was a best way to describe it. Let me find my notes here because I had the best way to describe it. Oh boy. Oh well. But it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of that
We'll
idea that
drop it on the socials.
the
Yeah, don't worry about it.
realities, that there's realities under realities under realities.
It's the matrix.
Yeah, it's the
Multi-layer,
matrix. It's that kind of
multi-dimensional
depth.
layers.
It's turtles upon turtles upon turtles all the way down.
That's interesting.
Deep.
I think I need a turtle bracelet now that has like just turtles all the way around it.
Yeah.
I like that.
See, it wasn't dirty.
Alright. Well,
You were worried. You
you
were
never
worried. I
know.
could tell you were worried.
Oh, oh God, she's gonna say something. Well, that's all I have. Hey, and I say that's all I have, but seriously, when you think about the sum total of this from the beginning of creation, what everything is built on, whether it's, stepping into that moon, that lunar aspect, that nocturnal aspect, whether it's taking things slow and steady and being strategic and being independent. And perhaps even, again, knowing when to withdraw, when to stand tall, when to, erect boundaries. It can be that it seems so disconjointed, but it's not. Does that make sense? Like it's
Yeah.
just in this broad aspect of a single symbol. So if it shows up for you, how is it showing up for you? Is it moving? Is it not moving? Is it alive? Is it deceased? What kind of turtle is it? Where is it regionally? So if you see a bumper sticker with a turtle and the bumper sticker says, Cambodia, what does a Cambodian turtle represent specifically? Like in
Right.
Cambodia, what do their turtles mean to them? So you might want to look at the historical, the cultural context, the religious. There's so many ways that we can look at this, and it's, again, so far encompassing because they're all over the world.
Yes. But also, as you reminded me the other day, I think it's really important to point out, what are you thinking about when you see this? Because
That's your big
what you're
indicator.
thinking about, the things you're ruminating on and thinking about, whether it's your problems, your worries, or just everyday little things, whatever you're thinking about, and then you see a specific symbol that kind of pops up in a very unexpected way, that also really ties in. It's almost like a question is being answered. Yeah,
Yes,
and that
very
message,
much so.
those synchronicities that it's being sent to you at a very specific time, likely when you're thinking about something very specific. So pay attention to your thoughts when you see these things pop up.
I think I'm gonna ask for a turtle shell when I go on my hike,
Ooh, I
and
would,
we'll
oh my
see if I
gosh.
get one.
If you get one, I'll just be like, oh my
I'll
gosh.
see if I get one. I'll probably get a real turtle that wants to bite me, but that's okay. Well, we want to thank you for listening to us or watching us on YouTube. You can find us on not only YouTube and anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Keeping It Simple. Of course, you will see our mascot, Horace. He is our falcon emblem. That's how you let us how we let you know that it's us. And with that, we bid you adieu.
I do. Thank you very much.
Adieu.
I do.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.